Let me start with a woman named Maria, 47. She hadn't slept through the night in 2 years. She'd tried everything: the sleep restriction protocol, the therapy workbook, the weighted blanket, the prescription her doctor finally, reluctantly gave her. And every morning she'd sit at her kitchen table, hands around her coffee, looking out the window with the specific hollowness of someone who's been fighting their own body for 2 years and is running out of strategies. Here's what none of the interventions touched. Maria was not present in her own life. She was so far outside the current moment, so lost in the list, the noise, the next thing, that she couldn't hear what her own body was screaming at her every night. When she finally sat down for 20 minutes of quiet each morning, not to fix anything, just to be present enough to listen, the answer came in 3 days. She'd been living her husband's version of their shared life, nodding at every major decision while her own knowing went unspoken. Her body had been waking her at 3 a.m. to get her attention, and she couldn't receive the message because she was never present enough to hear it. This is the first of the 5 dimensions your inner life is built on. Mindful awareness. And I put it first for a reason. It's the channel everything else flows through. Because you cannot work with what you cannot notice. So let me define it. Precisely. Mindful awareness is your capacity to notice what's actually happening as it happens, not remembered later, not analyzed after the fact, in the moment. It's the difference between living your life and reviewing the tape of a life you weren't fully in. Now here's the part that stings. The research is clear on this. Most adults operate on autopilot the majority of their waking hours, going through the motions of their lives while their attention is genuinely elsewhere. And most people significantly overestimate how present they are, not because they're deluded, because they've never had a way to measure it. You've never measured your own attention, so you assume it's fine. For most of us, it isn't. This dimension has 3 parts, and the assessment measures all 3. The first is present moment awareness. Are you here, right now, or somewhere in the past or the future, while your body goes through the motions? The second is emotional awareness. Do you know what you're feeling while you're feeling it? Or do you find out hours later when you snap at someone that you'd been angry all afternoon and never noticed? The third is attention quality. When you decide to focus, does your attention actually go there and stay? Or does it scatter, drift, get pulled away by every notification and stray thought? Present moment awareness. Emotional awareness. Attention quality. That's the dimension. Now, here's why it matters more than the others. There's a voice underneath your noise. I call it your true voice, your genuine knowing. And it has a specific quality. It's quiet. Not because it's weak, because it has no need to compete or convince or defend. It says what it has to say once with a settled clarity, and then it waits for you to be quiet enough to hear it. That's the whole problem. You can only hear that quiet voice in the moments you're actually present. When you're lost in noise, lost in the scroll, lost in the past, the signal is still there. You just can't receive it. Mindful awareness is the receiving. That's why it goes first. Raise this one, and every other dimension becomes accessible. Leave it low, and nothing else can move. Because you can't work on what you can't feel. So how do you know when you have it? Here's the recognition. This is the part that matters. You have it when you catch your reactions in real time, not in retrospect. That's the first sign. The old you found out you were stressed when the day was already ruined. The present you feels the stress rising while it's rising. And that early notice is everything, because it's the only moment where you can still do something about it. You have it when you notice your attention as you move through the day, not just when you sit down to focus. In line at the store, mid-conversation, driving home. There's a quality of being here that starts to run on its own. You have it when the gap closes, the gap between something happening and you noticing it happened. That gap used to be hours, then minutes, then seconds. And when it's seconds, you have your life back because you're actually in it. Here's what most people don't expect. This is trainable and it's measurable. When you rate your present moment awareness, your emotional awareness, your attention quality each morning, something shifts. The act of measuring trains the very thing you're measuring. You start noticing during the day because you know you'll be scoring it. The observer, once trained, cannot be untrained. That's the strangest, most useful part. You don't have to force presence. You just start tracking it honestly, and the tracking builds the muscle. After about 30 days, most people report the self-attention starts operating between sessions. It stops being something you do, it becomes something you are. And here's what it costs you when it's low, so you understand the stakes. Low awareness means you're running on autopilot, reacting from old patterns instead of responding to what's in front of you. You miss the early signals. You miss the quiet knowing. You miss your own life in the specific sense that you're rarely in the room where it's happening. Like Maria, awake for 2 years and still not present enough to hear herself. Raise it and you get the room back. You're present for the conversation, the meal, the moment with your kid, the decision, not reviewing it later, in it. This is the foundation. Everything in the other 4 dimensions runs through this one. If you moved only this single number, everything downstream would start to shift, because you'd finally be present enough to notice it moving. So before you do anything else, find out where your mindful awareness actually stands. Not where you assume it is, where it is. Take the free assessment at consciousnesstrack.app/quiz. 5 minutes, no email required, completely free. It maps exactly where you are across all 5 dimensions of your inner life, starting with this one. I'm Candace. I'll see you in the next one.